Question from Theo. Would you recommend a certain kind of psychotherapy for removing emotional blocks that prevent us from being able to love properly?
No, I can't, because I'm not a doctor, number one. And number two, what worked for me might not work for other people. Psychology, yeah. Psychology, you know, is very personal and individual. I did primal scream therapy. I had an interest in it for a long time. Actually, since the 60s. I read Dr. Arthur Janoff's book, The Primal Scream. And something inside me said, hey, that would really do you a lot of good. But I could never afford it. It was always so expensive, you know? I mean, it was ridiculously expensive. The only places where there were primal scream clinics were in very, you know, ritzy neighborhoods, like Marin County and you know, North Hollywood, places like that. So Beverly Hills, you know, forget it. But then years later, I got a chance to do a research project. I was a technical writer, and a PhD therapist who was doing primal therapy approached me to help her write a book. So I said, okay, we'll trade. My skills for your skills. Okay, deal. And so I got 1.5 years of professional, private, primal therapy out of the deal. First of all, it's very rare to find anyone who can really do primal therapy. And you do not want to be in the hands of an amateur when you're reliving your birth or something like that. So, you know, I can't recommend it to everybody. A lot of people don't have what it takes to get through it. You know, you have to be pretty tough, pretty strong. And again, I mean, I saw people go through I saw people do 1 year of primal therapy and not get anywhere. Because they didn't want to face the real issues. See? You can go into primal therapy and you can move a bunch of energy and get a lot of negative emotional charge off of your case. But then you have to go in and you have to cognize, you have to realize the actual causes of all that pain. And if you don't do that, you'll be right back in the room the next week, you know, screaming about the same thing. And I've seen people burn up 1 year of therapy that way and not move, not get anywhere. Because they weren't willing to look at the real fact. The fact is that our pain and our suffering is the result of our own previous actions. It's our karma. If you can't take responsibility for your karma, you're not going to benefit from therapy. And I mean in a very literal way. You see how you attract situations that cause you suffering. You know? And that's what I did. I saw, after, you know, like 1.5 years of therapy, that I kept, out of laziness, I kept accepting people as leaders who were not really qualified to lead me. And so then I had to go through a very difficult process over so many years of one by one rejecting all of the habits and the people who represented those habits in my life, of being led astray by bad leaders. So I finally came down to the point where the only person whose leadership I could accept was Srila Prabhupada. You know? But, you know, it took a long time to do that. It took a lot of inner confrontation to do that. And, you know, without the therapy process, I wouldn't have been able to do it. But on the other hand, the therapy process wasn't the whole thing either. So, I mean, this is a big subject. It's a deep subject, a complex subject. People go to school for 6 years to learn therapy and, get a PhD in psychotherapy. And there's a good reason for that, So, there's nothing, it's like you want me to just come up with a quick fix. There ain't no quick fix, Teo. This is going to be hard work, however you slice it. Just coming down here to Chile and like that, running away from it, that's not going to work. Just finding some therapist who's, and then wearing the same color tie, that's not going to work. What works is sincerity. What works is work. So you're going to have to do the work. No way around it. Next one.
The question from Prasad. Based on Bhagavad-gītā chapter 17 verse 6, the verse is, those who undergo severe austerities and penances not recommended in the scriptures, performing them out of pride, egotism, lust and attachment, they torture their bodily organs as well as the super soul dwelling within. So his question is, how does the super soul suffer when a person tortures their body, because the super soul is spiritual, whereas the body is material?
Who is Prasad? Who is this person? A guest? Is somebody that found us on Ustream, or? Yeah, it's the first time he's asked a question, so I don't like to just answer a question. I want to know who's answering the question, or who's asking the question, and answer the person. Good, good.
He says, yes, I am a devotee in San Jose, California.
Oh, okay. So, how do you torture the super soul? Well, how do you torture the super soul when you break the regulative principles, for example? You see? Of course, the super soul is transcendental, and he doesn't feel any pain. But the point is that we should be aware that the super soul is riding within this body along with us. If we don't have Paramatma realization and can't perceive the super soul directly, then at least we should know from Shastra that he's there, and that he's operating the body, and that he is our life force, and that he's our intelligence, and he's giving us memory, intelligence, forgetfulness, life. He's digesting our food, he's beating our heart, he's doing all these tasks just to help us, even though we don't serve him in this material world. And what do people do? They break the regulative principles. And because of this, they get karma. Well, similarly, people perform austerities. Well, look at Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu stood on the tips of his toes with his hands up in the air for I don't know how many thousands of years of the demigods. He stood there until ants came and built an anthill around his body, and there was only bones left. And still he was standing there. And you can imagine what kind of hard-headed guy he was, huh? Woo-wee, stubborn. So, when Lord Brahma came to give him his benediction, he had to touch him with this water pot. And then he restored his body, but he had performed such severe austerities that his body was just it was down to just bones. So the demons are always doing that. Demons are always performing unauthorized sadhanas, There's a verse where Lord Shiva describes his incarnation as Shankaracharya. And he describes the philosophy that he taught as asat shastra. Asat means false, non-eternal. And shastra, of course, means scripture. Right? So the demons always follow asat shastra. Asat shastra means that they concoct some scripture. Like you see, especially the Shaivites are very good at this. They'll concoct some scripture that basically tells them to go out and do whatever it is they want to do anyway. And then they put it in Lord Shiva's mouth. They put the words in Lord Shiva's mouth, and then they go on off and they do whatever they like. And it usually involves, some breaking of religious principles, actual religious principles.